everybody. Welcome to episode 2 of Battle Chads. This one's entitled Standard is Dead, Long Live Standard. And today I've got myself, Josh Richardson. I haven't saying my name, Josh Richardson. Just said my name. It's me,
What's
Josh.
your name, isn't it?
And my co-host is Luis. Say hello, Luis.
Luis Alvarez Zucchino. Yeah, apparently that's what we're doing today.
The third. Yeah, and we've got a guest on with us, the Christian, who's going to be our irregular regular, but today he's our guest. Hey, Christian.
The irregular regular. I like it. Yeah. Hello, thanks for having me. I'm Christian.
not even a last name, just left it
sorry,
out.
Sorry. I thought my name might precede me, but it is not. So yeah, my name's Christian. I am one half of YouTube channel Chad Magic, where we play Commander gameplay badly. And I also play 1v1 formats, and I actually prefer 1v1 formats. And it's okay for me to say that here because the Commander players aren't listening, so I can get away with it.
So how this episode's going to run is we're going to talk about the main bulk of it's going to be around Standard and the fact that Standard has been kicking off in this RCQ season. But before that, we'll do a quick meta breakdown. Before the show started, we actually signed a format for the for our co-host and our guest to talk about. So Christian, do you want to update us up on Pioneer?
Well, I prepared Oathbreaker, so that's a bit of a surprise. No, I'm only joking. I love Pioneer. Those who've played Magic with me will know I'm a big advocate for the format. And yeah, I suppose the big news in Pioneer is that there is no news. Well, there is no bans anyway. There was a lot of talk around banning Treasure Cruise because of the presence of Phoenix. I mean, Luis, you're a Phoenix player, so I'm going to ask you, and then I'll give my opinion. Should they have banned Treasure Cruise?
I think maybe not right now, looking at the stats, but it feels like it's just delaying the inevitable. It is a very strong card. It's only going to get better. I know Wizards is pushing for the fact they want Pioneer to be the Delve format. Is it healthy? Is it something they can consistently keep? I'm not sure. Maybe if Dig Through Time becomes a problem as well, they'll ban both of them straight off the bat and then just write it off. But right now, it is very strong. It is one of the only real cards I think in contention for a banning. But stats at least seem to be holding as far as Phoenix win rate versus other deck archetype win rates. So I'm currently leaning on the no side, but I think it's inevitable to happen.
It's interesting. I mean, I actually don't play Phoenix. I play blue-white control for my sins. Don't shake your head at me. It's the best deck archetype. I hopefully we still have some listeners after my 5-minute introduction to this podcast. But I have no problem with Treasure Cruise. I think Treasure Cruise is a powerful card, but it requires setup. You can just counter it, right? Or just get rid of your graveyard. So, I mean, if you were to go to a Pioneer RCQ tomorrow, Luis, would you be on Phoenix? Would you play Phoenix?
Absolutely. That's my go-to deck. I've been playing Phoenix since I started playing Magic, essentially, and I'm very practiced with it. And it is just very good. It is one of the best decks in Pioneer, arguably the best. I think you can't go wrong playing Phoenix right now.
I think some people can go wrong playing Phoenix. I've seen. I feel a lot more intimidated playing you at Phoenix than I do when other people are on it. That's for sure. In terms of the other decks in the format, Amalia had a really poor showing at the Pro Tour. I mean, it's not my kind of deck. I know, Luis, it's not your kind of deck either. It's kind of like a combo-y life gain one. There was talk about maybe something should be banned out of that as well. But I mean, if they ban like the Wild Growth Walker or something, the deck just doesn't exist anymore. So maybe they don't have a problem with it. But I suppose the big one is the Rakdos Vampires deck. So for those of you who don't know,
we split a twin.
I mean, we've had a discussion about this, about whether or not it's a combo. I mean, I think it's just cheating something in, really. But for those of you who don't know, Rakdos is a very powerful 2-color sort of type in Pioneer. There were two main decks, mid range and Rakdos Sacrifice, and now the mid-range one can now be done in a vampire's way, where you use Sorin, 3-mana Sorin, to cheat in the new card from MKM, which is Vein Ripper, which is like a super powerful vampire that, you've got to sacrifice a creature. It's got ward, sacrifice a creature on it, and then it's got like a super blood artist trigger or something like that, where it's like lose 2 your opponent and you gain 2. So it just will win a game. It's big flyer. And obviously that won the Pro Tour, and hats off to Channel Fireball and their team for developing the deck. I was saying before the Pro Tour, Pioneers solved. Obviously, I know nothing about Magic because I didn't solve it. But we have that deck, and I think the meta will adjust to it. They've dropped, I think, the Graveyard Trespassers in Rakdos mid-range and a couple of other cards so they can like fit it in. It's a powerful combo, but I think it kind of took everybody by surprise. And we've seen that before with like most recently in Pioneer with the blue white Lotus deck. When I played that, that was like a resurgent thing. Obviously, we're talking a different level there. We're talking like RCQ level, but people didn't know how to play against the deck, and I think people will adjust to it. But they've had some good results, Rakdos Vampires, in different tournaments. Some good, some not as good. But we've definitely seen Phoenix and Blue White Control at the top table as well. So I think there's a few different ways to do Pioneer. I don't know if
I think with Pioneer, the not the problem, or the way I interpret Pioneer, because Pioneer is a format I'm not really engaging with currently, is there seem to be a lot of questions and not enough answers. So a melee combo, like if they have it on turn 3, you just win the game on the spot. The Rakdos Vampire Shell, turn 3, they put like a game-winning threat in. Phoenix by turn, I think. Can you get the Phoenix out by turn 3 or 4?
Yeah, reasonably.
So it's like it's almost faster than modern right now in that sense, but it doesn't have your solitude, it doesn't have your endurances, it doesn't have these free spells or these free answers that sort of keep these threats in check. And I suspect that Pioneer will only get more fair or enriched with more sets that get introduced into it. It's still a fairly new format, right?
I think that's why Blue White Control is so important for the format as well. So this is why I'm on this high horse again, sort of defending my favorite archetype. But Pioneer really needs it to keep some of those decks in check. Like, the Amalia deck. Like, there's so many things that can't be answered in that. You got Lotus Field as well, which we haven't talked about. Yeah. But you're right. There's a lot of decks that are like asking questions that some decks just can't answer. And so that sort of governs the format at the moment.
It's definitely the format where I don't think they're looking to print 0 mana, ridiculous answers anytime soon, because they're trying to keep free spells out of it. I think it's a very healthy thing to do for now, especially because it's relatively new. Obviously it started back 2019, but COVID kind of kicked it under the rug for a while. It came back. I definitely wasn't expecting Sorin Imperious Bloodlord to come in so hot. Last time someone was playing that, they were memeing a giant dinosaur into my face with that Galta Vampire combo
people were trying
card.
to make that happen, weren't
they? And now it's a proper vampire that's very hard to remove. And I think going forward, it definitely needs some stronger, more well-placed answers to the questions that are being asked. And I think you are right. I think Blue-White is a very important deck. Back when Modern was young, Blue-White was a very important deck in the meta. It kept everything fair, kept everything in check. And it is good for these new formats. It is a positive thing, I think, overall, even though it's a little boring, just a tiny bit boring.
I'm just looking at the Pioneer metagame now on MTG Goldfish, and granted it is mainly online tournament results, but obviously you've got 19% of the meta is Rakdos Vampires, 17% of the meta is it Phoenix, then below that 8% of the meta or 9% of the meta is Abzan Amelia combo, and then you've got Azorius Control just after that, and then Hidden Strings. It seems to be like the top sort of 4 decks are combo decks mixed with the control decks. And then you get obviously the fair Rakdos mid-range decks, and you got mono black discard, then you got the aggro decks below that. It seems like it just seemed like a format. If I look at this, there's not many answers to these questions.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things Luis just said then, the format's a bit boring, and I think Pioneer is probably the easiest format for it to actually become a little bit stale, because it appears that Modern rotates faster than Pioneer, because you get like a new set every year. It's like Lord of the Rings, which was like Modern Horizons, sort of. and then you've got a new Modern Horizons coming. There was a Modern Horizons before that everybody knows just like was like throwing a grenade in a room and just seeing what was left
Yep.
to open the door afterwards. But Pioneer's got its merits. I think Pioneer's basically the new Modern, and the idea here will be that it's kind of a bit better than that in a way, and it's worse in other ways. But the way in which it's better is because Pioneer can still be affected quite a lot by new sets that come out.
Yeah.
So you see, like Vein Ripper comes out, and then a new kind of deck sort of appears, and that's the good thing, because that's what Magic really should be. Is your format can last for a long time, but is still enough to be affected by sets. And there's always cards for Pioneer that come out in every set. Obviously, it's the same for other formats, but you tend to get quite a few for Pioneer. You look, we had No More Lies for Blue-White
Yeah.
Control.
Very
They
big.
Get Lost for Blue-White Control as well, these are just incredible cards that really, really help those decks. And so
That
Charm.
makes a lot more sense. I thought my last blue-eyed opponent was telling me to go away. No more lies, get lost. I'm like, what did I do? How did I insult you? I'm sorry. But now that makes a lot more sense.
But yeah, that I suppose that's the Pioneer wrap up. I suppose, if you are having trouble with Phoenix, play some Blue-White Exile effects. Sorted.
Disgusting.
Okay, Luis. So tell us about Modern. What's new in Modern?
Right, so Modern. How modern? The violent outburst ban is starting to settle a little bit. Still a little early to tell exactly what's happening, but we had a lot of recent tournaments. The Hunter Burton Memorial tournament was big. A lot of stuff happening there. Somehow ended with 2 creativity decks in the finals. Jund Creativity versus 5 Color, with Jund coming out on top. Not what we expected. Creativity definitely wasn't on the radar as the upcoming best deck, but it wasn't dead. People did know it was around. People did expect Creativity to still be thriving. I mean, before the One Ring and all those big changes, Creativity was the big deck. It was absolutely obliterating everyone. So it's good to see that it's still alive and kicking and doing well. And with all the last chance qualifiers as well, we've had quite a varied kind of showing up, I suppose. The metagame has been quite varied. I think we had 2 Murktide wins with the last chances, which is interesting. Wasn't expecting Murktide to be taking anything. It's good. I think it's healthy to have Murktide in the top. It's a very 50-50 deck. It's fair, and all as fair as a gigantic 8/8 flying dragon in your face can be, but still relatively fair. And then I think there was a few other interesting showings. One of them was Blue-Black Mill playing Glimpse the Unthinkable. Not something I thought I'd see any time again. Glimpse was very much a dead card for a very long time, but it's, hey, good to see that it can still win tournaments, I suppose. Aside from that, we had showings with the usual suspects, Yawgmoth and some Rhinos. Plenty of them in the top 8 still showing up, but Rhinos is definitely taking a big hit. It's not showing up nearly as much. Living End seems all but dead at this point. It's just,
well, it's interesting. It's interesting when you looked at Rhinos, because Rhinos is now playing this this sorcery speed game plan.
Yeah,
but
with
when you
Ardent
look at
Play.
creativity does that plan better. Like Rhinos turn 3 makes 10 power on turn 3 at sorcery speed, where creativity makes I win the game.
Yeah. It makes two giant, what are they, 5/5? No, 6/6 flyers that absolutely make you get wrecked, outvalue you.
Yeah, especially if you get 2 out, yeah, you've lost this game.
Yeah. It is, I guess we should have expected it. If everyone's going to be playing a sorcery game, speed game, or whatever you want to call it, Creativity is very good at that. It has always been very good at that, and it can do it a little better with Teferi as it being a mainstay in their deck.
The presence of Gilpack and Scion of Draco, though, is potentially problematic, because it's pretty much everywhere. I saw a Twitter post today where someone posted a league where they actually went. I think they played Domain Zoo, and every one of their matches was the mirror in some aspect.
Yeah.
Gilpack, Scion mirror.
Oh, I hope the comment section actually rips into you for saying Scion instead of Scion. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? This is Scion of Draco.
Why you like this? I'm just thinking something off the Matrix, probably.
Yeah. And then Tron also turned up a lot in the Last Chance qualifiers. It had a lot of showings. In one of them, it won against itself in the finals. So another big deck coming back. I don't like Tron. I despise it. I know we're gonna get roasted. Thomas Duffy and was it Steven? I think that they play.
Steven.
They play a lot of Tron. But no, not. I hate the deck. I hope that deck just stays dead forever. But it looks like it's making a comeback. I'm sure they'll be happy.
I mean, counting to 10 is more admirable than counting to 7, right?
Yeah, I suppose.
Right?
Yeah. But yeah, that's basically what's going on with Modern. We should be getting some more tournaments coming up in this coming weekend, or for the next 2 weekends or so, that will show us how the metagame settles down. I still expect Yawgmoth to be the big winner here, Titan to be a close second, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. I see Titans playing a lot of what's her name, the Elish Norn from Mom.
Mother Machines, is it?
Yeah,
what's it called?
I think that's her name. She's
one.
Yeah, the ETB one. She's doing a lot of. She's making the rounds right now because it's very good against most of Titan's bad matchups. Not great against Yawgmoth, but good against just about everything else. Especially with both Creativity, Goryo's Vengeance, and those decks coming around, because they all play a ton of ETBs. That's how they remove things as well. And if you can't play ETBs, well, you can't remove Elish Norn. So it's quite a big deal. So we'll see how that shapes out to be. Anything else from you guys you think that's worth?
I was just going to ask a question. Sorry, when is the next Modern season? Is the next Modern RCQ season after Modern Horizons 3?
Yeah, but basically, I think when Modern Horizons 3 is about to hit, that's when the new season hits.
That's going to be a fun time then.
Oh yeah. Oh boy. I can't wait. Everyone's going to be scrambling to buy new
Bruce
cards.
Paradise.
Yeah. Also, Wizards' money wallet paradise, because this is going to be horrible for us. Oh boy.
I've already pre-ordered a box.
Of course you have.
Well, the good news about it is, right, and this is maybe a debatable point, is they're making obviously Modern Horizons 3 very popular with Commander players, and I always am a big advocate, if turn up on the night for a format you don't play to do your trades. That's one of the good things.
Yeah, that's true.
Players will open those packs. They will open them because they'll make it really juicy for Commander players as well. And I think that's going to be needed to actually make it affordable. But before that, don't forget as well, you've got Assassin's Creed.
What worries me is how much of it is going to be Commander stuff. They've already made Commander decks in Modern Horizons 3. What else are they doing? I'm a little scared. I'm not going to lie.
I'm a Commander creator, so I'm a little bit biased in saying I'm all for it. Yeah, don't at me.
Commander, you can keep all your rares. If you want to trade your super efficient 1/2 drop mythic for this 7 drop horrendous rare, I'll trade.
Heard it here first, folks. Make sure you go to Commander Night and get all your juicy trades in.
Yeah, cheers, Luis. So we're going to talk about Legacy now and the way the format's shaping and the discord over sort of Twitter and all these things with Legacy is the fact that it's balanced but miserable. And the reason that misery, or the way that misery comes from, is the whole grief scam sort of stuff. So grief is everywhere now, and it's almost as played as the sort of Wasteland Days brainstorm. It's becoming so ingrained in Legacy right now, but it's just miserable to play against. Like if you look at the new, I say new blue black Scaminator deck. The reason I say new in brackets is because the cards have existed for months, but all of a sudden, the past month or two, it's just came out of the woodworks and it's just dominating everywhere. And the sort of way that deck plays is it holds up this blue fair package, but has this like unfair reanimator sort of spin to it, which means that they can reanimate Atraxa with Force of Will, Daze, and Wasteland backup.
This is how you know.
Backup as well.
This is how you know that this is not for Commander players, because he just called blue fair. They would be having an absolute fit. This would be the worst.
Just the way you described Legacy to me then was not a great advert for the format. When you
the format's great. So the format is great. It is, in my opinion, the greatest format right now. However, I would say that when the bans got announced, I think a lot of people were expecting either Bowmasters or Grief. No, I don't think Bowmasters should be banned. I think Bowmasters adds a depth to Legacy that is really welcomed, and that is you can't just free spell whenever you want. You can't just free cantrip whenever you wanted. It changes the way you play your game. It keeps you this. It gives you this almost risk to just cantrip at any time you wanted. You have to give it an extra thought, kind of like how people sort of have to play around days. It's just that secondary thought. Bowmasters provides that depth to the legacy, which I think is actually fairly nice. The whole Grease Scaminator package is it is miserable. I mean, if you're playing against Reanimator, you probably need 2 levels of interaction. Especially if you don't want to be reanimated on turn 1, which the black red Reanimator deck can do. But the whole Grief package means that they can strip your hand, and just get and just take away that interaction. And I don't think the like Thoughtseize, or I don't think what's Unmasked is the same sort of. You can't compare it to Grief, because with Grief you can double grief someone and then have a body at the end of it, have a threat at the end of it.
Yeah. Who knew Reanimate was a good card, right?
Reanimate's a very good card, and Reanimate's played almost as like a fair card at the moment, especially with the printing of Troll of Khazad-dûm. You can get yourself a land on tap and then get yourself a really stonky draft chaff rare, draft chaff common in play. That'll just win the game. But I think Legacy would be in a much better place if the Grief wasn't in the format. I think if Grief didn't exist, I think the game would be in a much better situation.
Should they have never printed Grief?
They should never have printed the elemental package. I mean, the only 2 elementals I actually think are quite fair and quite fine is Subtlety and Endurance, and that's only because they answer some really egregious problems. And they don't even do it that efficiently, really. I mean, the Subtlety turns off your Teferi by a turn, and Endurance turns off your graveyard shenanigans by potentially a turn.
Yeah.
And you and I both love graveyards, but they are a bit ridiculous sometimes.
To be like, Legacy is a turn 2 format now. You need to be doing something by turn 2. Like, all your threats are turn 2, and I don't mean like 2 mana. I mean essentially turn 2. So Goblin Radamaster is a turn 2 threat. Murktide a turn 2 threat. Atraxis a turn 2 threat.
Ridiculous. Reanimate Atraxis is the most horrendous thing I've ever seen. Oh my god.
But yeah, the Legacy's a great format, and I do think Grief is probably the problem there, and it's creating some feel bads. Another thing that's making feel bad about the Legacy format, as well as Christian before alluded to, Assassin's Creed. But I don't know if you heard recently the news that Daybreak said that the Fallout set will not be released on MTGO at all, which means that if you're a Legacy player, you can't play the same format online, which is the best way to play Legacy, really, as you can in paper. I say best way to play Legacy. Paper's the best way to play Legacy, obviously, but
the most common,
the
easiest way to play. Right? You don't have to shell out £500 for an underground sea.
People aren't whacking out Legacy at F&M usually, so it's
if you want to do well at a big tournament, and there's a lot of big Legacy tournaments knocking around, especially if you're from Europe and North America, you need to be able to test these decks. And if you're not in a testing group or a Legacy play group with a good few players in there, you can't test these cards, which is horrendous.
And there is a new card, isn't there? Is it the Sloth?
Yeah, so I've actually got them right here. So there's an example, the Lumbering Mega.
You were onto it straight away.
I like how you just had that.
I saw a Twitter post by, I think it was Douglas on Twitch. He posted because I play Depths as well in paper, Turbo Depths, and Lumbering Megasloth with Yavimaya and a Dark Depths out is a turn 2 8/8 with trample. That's better than Murktide, really.
Pretty good.
Potentially, yeah.
You don't need the graveyard to switch it on. And it's a turn 2 on curve as well. So
it's about counters, right? So
yeah, so basically what it says, I'll read it because it's right here. It says, this spell costs 1 less to cast for each counter among players and permanents. It has trample, and Lumbering Megasloth enters the battlefield tapped, so we can't block on turn 2 at least. But it costs 10 and 2 green. So if you have a Yavimaya out and a Dark Depths, it's just 2 mana.
If you enjoyed that card reading by Josh, let us know. We'll have him read a card every single podcast.
Nailed it.
Please don't. I can't read very well.
Back to what you were saying.
Yeah, we know, Mr. Skyon. Jesus.
Back to what you're saying, though, I think it's a really interesting point about things changing between online, because that's basically them saying online and in paper legacy is going to be completely different. I know
Yeah.
it took a while for them to get to the Warhammer cards, and you had to jump through a very narrow hoop to get them, but
Yeah, very
they
narrow.
do exist online. But what really scares me is the fact that Universes Beyond is something that they're going to continue to do, and so it if they continue to not support it with MTGO, I mean, where does it end? Because we got Assassin's Creed coming out. Have they got the Assassin's Creed license? Because that's going into modern. So modern
If this,
players who are dying to play Leonardo da Vinci might
Yeah.
be disappointed on MTGO.
if this problem existed in modern, there'd be an uproar, a
Yeah.
massive uproar.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, because it is one of the most popular formats beyond Commander that there is. Like, it's one of the most formats that people most engage with. It's one of the formats people most consume, and it's a realistic format to people to own. And like Legacy, essentially, Legacy is a format where people will never ever buy the cards for. Thankfully, the resurgence of like of proxy Legacy tournaments, but still, like, it's nice to own your cards, and if you can't play your deck online to test for a big tournament,
Yeah.
it'll
Well, that's
bite
what
the hand.
Yeah. And this is going to
happened with
be.
Warhammer one, wasn't it? Is somebody turned up and everyone was like, "What?"
Someone turned
Like,
up and won a what was it? It was Eternal Weekend North America with Triumph of Saint Catherine.
Yeah.
But now that card's online, people realize, oh, actually, it's not that broken because we know how to beat it. It's just
Uh-huh.
a 5/5 with lifelink.
I've seen a lot of the YouTube legacy
That big of
players
a threat,
cutting it
really.
because it's not great. It's not great. It's just the worst miracle most of the time.
Yeah.
meanwhile, Josh is going to turn up with his sloth. Haha, get right.
Get wrecked. Here's my sloth.
But it's for those reasons that I do think that it's unlikely. I mean I'd be incredibly surprised if the Assassin's Creed had even close to a similar issue to what Fallout did.
If they
Assassin's
did that
Creed
for
is
modern, if they did that for modern, it would be
it would be it could kill the format. Like it would be horrendous. I
Because they don't
mean,
really think about legacy in the same way, but
Yeah.
they definitely think about modern.
Modern is one of the premier flagship formats of Magic right now. It's Modern,
mean,
Pioneer,
again,
Standard for competitive scene, and then obviously Commander being Commander. You can't do that to one of your premier flagship formats. It would kill the format. It would divide the player base. It would be horrendous. And this is a full, like absolutely full set as well. So there's gonna be something from that set that is gonna be highly played in Modern. I'd be, you know, I'll eat a sock on camera if it doesn't. It is incredibly unlikely for something not to make modern decks. You know, make something there.
I think it's
Yeah.
essentially an aftermath set. But just you said it's a full set, but I'm not. I know they're doing
It's
like the
essentially a
aftermath.
full set. It's
Yeah,
not as big as Lord of the
yeah.
Rings, but it's still pretty big.
They know what they're doing. They're not going to print a set of Assassin's Creed and not have something in there for modern if it's going into modern. They will
Yeah.
because they want people to open the packs. And I can tell you now, people aren't going to be opening them to draft with because they're going to be aftermath boosters.
I mean,
I wonder if this sort of like attitude towards modern is that will drive people into Pioneer. Like if Pioneer had that solved all the problems it has, i.e., it doesn't have the answers to the problems. If it was a much more balanced and potentially more interesting format, then there'd be no reason to play modern because you're just going to be
I think your view there
priced out of
maybe
it
isn't
essentially.
shared though, Josh. Like so,
Yeah.
so like you know we're saying, oh, I don't know if that's how like Wizards are approaching the Pioneer format, and they're going, oh, there's we've got this problem or anything like that. I think they're probably actually quite happy with it. Hence the the sort of the no ban list. So it's not that I don't think you've got a point because I kind of agree with you, but I'm saying that I don't think that is like a widely shared perception of the format.
So all right, let me say it like this: if and more standard sets come out and it becomes a more interesting, balanced, fun format, more so than modern, where you're playing your Leonardo da Vinci's and all that stuff, and your Bowmasters and your Gandalfs
Spider-Man.
and your Spider-Mans, people are just going to be like, you know what? There's going to be a point where modern's getting ridiculous, and I just want to go back to Magic the Gathering, and I'm just
Yeah.
going to play Pioneer.
Well, maybe that's the case. They can only go forward, not backwards. So that
Mm.
it's going to happen, and then in 5 years, we might be sat here going,
I mean,
"Hey, is Standard the new pioneer?"
I mean, there's this attitude right now where people are like, "Oh, I want 2018 Magic back. I want 2018 Modern back. I want 2018 Legacy back. I want all the Sparks Magic back." And the thing is, what people don't seem to grasp is, or don't want to grasp, is the fact that Magic has evolved and it will evolve and it has
Yeah,
to evolve in order for it to survive. And you're not that format and that game is just not. It's not the same anymore. It just isn't. And it creates this bitterness between people when they look at modern like, oh, it's not the modern that I know. There's no mox opals and all this stuff. And I
I just want
agree.
my faithless looting back, man. Come on.
Yeah, modern has lost it. Like the thing is with these formats is you play standard, and then you got into modern, and then you got into legacy, and so on and so on. That was the gateway, and each format had its identity. Like modern was the mox opal faithless looting format. Legacy is your brainstorm days wasteland format. Now it's like Legacy is almost rotating every 2 months. Like 2 months ago, it was um, like red white meta. You know what I mean? Ancient two meta, and now it's back on blue reanimator meta, and it's just I think people are just they see a problem and they're like ban it, not evolve. And I do think that a format tends, especially like Legacy and Modern, tends to have the answers to the problems and will evolve.
Yeah.
So what do you want then as a player? Do you want your game to change, kind of significantly on a regular basis, or do you want it to be kind of the same?
I would like my cheaper formats like standard to
Yeah.
change every so often. But if I invest in legacy, I would like personally, if I have a legacy deck, I want that deck to change very little over many
Yeah.
years.
It's an
Because
investment. You don't want it to
yeah,
just yeah.
you fall in love with the deck. Like Infect now is my pet legacy deck, and that's unplayable now. You just can't play it now.
Your full art
It's just
foil
not.
infect deck.
It's just not good. And
Unlucky.
I don't even think it's because of Bowmasters. I just think it's because of grief. Grief scam hits like
uh,
you need
I don't know,
quantity in
man.
your hand.
For you, I think
Bowmasters.
it's Chalice of the Void. I saw you
Oh
when,
yeah.
on your birthday weekend play, what was it, back-to-back games against the 8cast, and every time a Chalice of the Void hit the field, you would throw your deck across the room.
Yep.
Well,
But
I actually think of when I think of like modern, I think of like because I started around War of the Spot. War of the Spot was my first pre-release, although I'd opened a couple of sets before then, mainly playing Commander, and so I don't know what Magic was like in the long ago, in the before times. But like modern to me is fetch lands, Chalice of the Void, and free spells. That's what modern is to me.
yeah,
Um,
that's not what it is when I start playing modern.
Pioneer it is like fair magic, in a non-rotating format, and then standard is like what's next. All the new stuff, which
Yeah.
which is important. But it's interesting to hear you talk about legacy because you're right. I think if you're investing a huge amount into these decks, you definitely don't want it to be changing all the time.
No.
It's not the same as the other formats, and it maybe ask the question as well: is are they shaking up modern too often? Is every
Yeah.
year too much for modern? Is once a year like
I think
what?
supplementary products are a problem, and I think they are a problem. And I don't think it's a problem that's going to go away because it just generates them too much cash. I think putting I think commander products should be separate for the 1v1 sort of line. I think commander should be potentially a separate game, like a spin-off game to Magic the
Commander
Gathering.
products were the worst thing to happen to Commander, in my opinion, as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is a sound bite. I didn't mean to interrupt you for it.
Well, it'd be interesting to know your reason for that, but
True name Nemesis wants to know your location.
What was that?
As a true name Nemesis wants to know your location. When that card came out in a commander product, it absolutely blew up Legacy for a good chunk of time, I want to say, and it keeps happening.
I think I'd rather deal with True Name Nemesis than Initiative when Initiative was out.
Yeah, for
Like,
sure.
honestly. Like they shouldn't be printed in 1v1 formats. But then again, how do you get most people buying these products if you can get legacy players and pauper players to buy these products
Well,
as well as command players?
Legacy and Pauper players are collateral damage of the Commander products, basically, because I mean, I actually really feel for Pauper players all the time because I'm just like, it doesn't matter what is released, it's for you. You literally can't skip anything. It's always for you. Always. There will never be an end to what Magic product is for you. Albeit it is usually the cheaper cards. It's Pauper, but then obviously Legacy is the same as well. But
Oh, getting
I
older
just
some
love
pauper
Blue.
cards, pauper staples is a nightmare. If you
Tell,
tried
tell
to
that to
build,
snuff out.
if you tried to build I don't know, like fog deck right now, you'd be in a hard time finding all those cards. Like dust to dust, dust to dust. You can't get dust to dust anywhere. It's a common, and it's like hen's teeth.
Yeah.
Right,
So
that's all I've got to say about Legacy. I don't know if you anyone want to add anything more.
No, I think we covered it pretty much. Basically, the basis is standard still standard. Pioneers becoming the new modern. Modern is the new legacy. Legacy is
What is Legacy? Legacy's grief.
something.
Good
Legacy
grief.
is grief. There you
Yeah,
go.
legacy's grief. Yeah, that's a good tagline.
End segment.
So we'll move on to the main topic of the show, which is the standard. Now, I think how I want to start the segment is from how standard died.
Okay.
Standard
Okay,
died. How did standard die? Well, I have a theory with how standard died. And I think most people would agree on this. I know Christian, you alluded to a theory that I'm quite interested in talking about. And standard died. A combination of two things for me. One, arena. I mean, you could play standard on arena. You could play really fast games, really interesting games of standard from the comfort of your own home. You don't have to go to an LGS where you have to put together a deck. You have to go play 3 rounds of Magic after an hour bus ride into town or whatever. You could do that from the comfort of your home. You can also play way more games of standard in a day than you could in probably 3 months of
Yeah.
paper Magic. And also, COVID really hit standard. Like,
Oh yeah.
there's no reason to go out to play standard anyway. You're definitely not going to do it because of lockdown. And I just think the combination of those two, which really was the death knell of standard.
So, I mean, the main issue I have with what you said there is an hour bus ride. I think Luis dreams of that. I think we have a running joke in our LGS that Luis has to get like about 7 trains and a ferry to get to the LGS. We're always waiting for him. But
Yeah,
in,
yeah.
in all seriousness, I mean, I don't disagree with them. I think you're completely right there. You know, my first experience of playing standard in an LGS, it was packed. What Commander Night is now for
Yeah.
standard, you know, it was packed. Loads of people playing all different types of decks, and
Yeah.
you had new players playing like the deck that they get given when they show up, or like something that they've tried to build themselves. I
Yeah.
remember scrambling to change my deck because I had loads of illegal cards because I didn't understand the formatting of when I turned up for standard. And I was like, why can't I play this Sigil of the Empty Throne or something like that in standard?
Oh boy.
COVID was obviously massive, and I think Arena was happening and COVID, they kind of combined together, didn't they? Like
Yeah.
to make this kind of perfect storm of. I mean, it was good in a way because people stayed into Magic, which was we let's not lose sight of like that. That's important.
I don't think it was playing any less in terms of of Magic the game.
But it
Well,
was
obviously
just
it's played less in paper, obviously. But
And realistically, what did we lose? The Ikoria companion era. I mean, I don't think I wanted to
think
play that.
that's true. Actually, it was a really bad standard as well when COVID hit. A really bad standard because you had Okos and the companions and all that sort of stuff.
Oro. Oh, fun.
Oro as
Well, the
yeah.
thing is, standard actually was a long time in COVID. I think there was a rotation and stuff involved.
Yeah, it was what 2 years. It's a long
I remember
time.
because I remember like I think towards the end of COVID, I was on like Yorion and playing like glass caskets and stuff like that,
God.
and the omens and things. Oh, you know what? I love that deck, so I can't complain.
I mean, realistically, right? Standard started dying around War of the Spark. War of the Spark release was horrendous for the game. It threw a lot of people away from it. They did not like the static ability planeswalkers when they came to be. Narset and Teferi were the huge, the huge offenders.
At this time, so what was it that people hated about it?
The interaction of Teferi was very counterintuitive to what what was happening, and Narset not allowing you to draw cards made people angry. People were very angry about that, and then even other cards, something like Karn, not allowing your artifacts to do anything. and those little tidbits made the game a bit worse.
It's when cards say you cannot play Magic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think this is why, going back to the legacy segment before, like I do think this is why Bowmasters are fine, because Bowmasters doesn't say you can no longer play Magic. It just, we're taxing you for playing Magic. You can
Yeah.
still play Magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where
Well,
Fairy says no, Narset says no.
which
And I
is
think
weird, right? Because Teferi's really odd in the way he functions. He doesn't say only on your turn they can't play. It's just they can't do anything instant speed in any way whatsoever, period. Which is really odd. It's not what you expect the card to say. Because it would shut down some fair things innately, which people didn't like. And as long-standing Magic yeah, like I yeah, because yeah, I don't know about fair for that one, but long-standing Magic players hated those kind of mechanics. They were not intuitive. They were not fun. And there was a horrendous amount of judge calls when those cards were first released. And it only got worse from there. We had Oko after that, and Uro, and Field of the Dead, and all these ridiculous cards, and a bunch of them getting banned as well after people invested money into them. It was a bad time.
It was a massive ban list, wasn't it, on standard?
Yeah, huge. I think it was the biggest we'd seen in a long time.
Yeah, I don't know how a lot of those cards got through when they were printing Eldraine. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That
Fire design, baby.
No, I think you're right, actually, because I was new to Magic, so I was brewing at the time when like War of the Spark happened, and I remember Eldraine pre-release, I opened like an Ironcrag Pyromancer, and it's like whenever you draw your second card, it deals 3 damage to any target.
Yeah.
And I was like, this card's cool. I like this card. I'm going to build a deck around it, and I built like Is It Draw 2 was like the sort of deck. Narset comes down, concede, lost. Yeah, I had no answer to it.
It's stopping these new players like you were come in and, oh, I've got a really cool idea for a deck, put it together, and then like, here you go. No, you can't. And you're like, oh, that's miserable. I'm not going to play this game. I'm going to go play Digimon.
So one of the things I would say, so you've talked there a bit of like sort of maybe like push factors, but I think one of the big pull factors is obviously Commander. So that was like the thing that I wanted to mention around, because if Standard was dead, where did the players go? And obviously you'll have some people who'll quit the game, sell a collection, whatever. That happens. Some people move on to different things instead of their children's card game that we all enjoy. But I think that Commander's just gone from strength to strength, and a lot of new players go into Commander. But if you speak to Commander players, right, they usually fall into 2 categories, and I am generalizing. One is new players who've only known Commander. They've got into it because their friends are like, hey, look at this cool new game that I've picked up. It's really fun. We can all play it together, and instead of like a board game night, that type of like thing. And then they get into it a little bit more. And then the other half of Commander players is people who used to play other formats and got sick of rotation. There was something else they didn't like about it, and they've just moved in to Commander, and that's all they play now. And there are a lot of them. So I think Commander became this massive pull factor away from Standard being the flagship format. And Wizards must recognize this, because I don't know if you guys know this, because you weren't at MagicCon Barcelona. In MagicCon Barcelona, there were no Standard events, and this is only last year. It's like 9 months ago. There was no Standard events, not one.
That's so
now,
bad.
bear in mind, you could play
Yeah,
Legacy
awful.
at this. You could play. There's a 44 pack. Every pack that was legal in Pioneer at the time, sealed event that you could do.
Oh, wow.
There was not one Standard event, and not even on demand. So, it's clear that Wizards knew it was dead, and we're going to talk about what they've been doing to revitalize it. But I think that we'd be remiss to just say, oh well, COVID and Arena and all the rest of it, because we all moved onto that platform. But I think also Commander just stole the player base away.
Yeah, it's true.
During COVID specifically, like, because people, the whole thing of spell table, people getting together and playing physical cards. I do think Commando's probably the one format that saved paper Magic, because they were printing boxes or printing cards for a consumer base that was no longer there because Standard is dead. But Commander took up that consumer base, and you can even look at the way like cards are designed now. There's so many legendary creatures in Standard sets. There's so many weird and wonderful cards that are obviously, there's cards in there that are obvious for Commander players, and it's it's one of these things that, like, as a money making company, they're gonna they're gonna meet the demand of
That's true.
that is there. Otherwise,
If
they're not
there's
gonna.
one thing you can count a commander player to do is buy packs. Oh, they're good at that.
Yeah. I
They
think
always have the best cards for trading. That's why.
You only need one of a card.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
don't need.
the other thing I was just going to say around the sort of commander thing is I think Wizards did try to bridge the gap in two ways. One was with Brawl, having like a rotating commander, which
Yeah.
failed, and they printed loads of cards into commander that they shouldn't have. Now Arcane Signet's a complete staple. Every deck has to, well, not every deck has to run it, but it's running most multicolored decks. And the other one was with companions. So, the less said about that, the better, I think. But
Yeah.
I think they thought, oh well, this is really popular in this format. Why don't we try it in that? So there was some acknowledgement on that side. I mean, people sometimes try and fail to do things. That's fine. But yeah, I think Commander was and still is the biggest thing, because you try and get a standard player to play Commander, sure, I'll give it a go. You try and get a Commander player to play Standard, oh my days, that is a tough ask. Like really, really, really tough. So I think they took a lot of players and kept a lot of players.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, like, the skills that you inherit from 1v1 playing format, they don't nurture in the commander players. It's like commander players, they tend to go off. They tend to run on sorcery speed, playing magic, and they tend to switch off when it's their opponent's turn, because there's 3 turns before it's back to your turn, and you don't learn about sideboarding. They don't necessarily like interaction. They just want to do the big, dumb, fun thing, which is completely fine. But that's not efficient. It's not efficient magic.
You've
Like in
watched
1v1, you've got to be efficient.
I see you've watched the show then. So you must be doing
I was on
big
it
dumb
once.
things. Yeah. Go and watch that episode. Put a link in the description.
Oh God. I'll put a link in the description if you guys want to see
Sorry, that poor Louise there. I should
the
just
the
go on, Louise.
the crazy what was it? I think Christian was not very happy about your deck and how powerful it was compared to
Oh,
what was
I
going.
had a great time. I'm not one of
Oh,
those commander
oh
players.
yeah. No. I saw you have a great time. What happened to your Gishath again? You got killed, countered, taken, something like that. Yeah, it was fantastic.
I don't know what was going on in that episode, but my deck was not allowed to function.
I was just left. Thing is, I was just left alone.
The worst bit, well, I'll just say it for the listeners because I know we're going to come back onto standard. But there was a funny moment in the game where I'd finally got Gishath out. For those of you who don't know, basically it's a dinosaur. It comes out, it attacks, and basically you cheat in a load of dinosaurs. And I'd managed to pull it off and cheated in like 5 or 6 dinosaurs. Josh has got Yarrick out, so he's getting like double ETBs. He has a Ravenous Chupacabra, kills 2 of my things, and then casts Saw in half. And then gets like another 4 trigger or whatever, and it was just not great for me. It was not a good time.
Fantastic. Oh boy, I'll put a link for all those that want to see the chaotic game that they played. But coming back to standard and everything going on there, so we talked about what killed it essentially, and what happened to standard and all those things. But now, what's brought it back? It seems to be kicking again. It seems to be doing all right. I've been going to a lot of RCQs, and they've been lively. They've been full of people. What do you think has revitalized the game, specifically in standard, that's done that?
So one or two things. One, they've made it, or they tried to make it so you can have your standard deck for longer by doing a 3-year rotation rather than 2. And secondly, they've forced us, if you want to be an RCQ grinder or want to get to the RC, play standard. Now, what I've noticed with now we're coming to the end of the RCQ format. What I've noticed is, I've written down here as well, that people are engaging with the format when they have to, but they continue to play in it because they like to. Like, the format is great; it's fun.
It is
Like,
fun.
people are realizing, I'm opening packs for a reason now. I'm not opening packs for the sake of it. I can actually open my packs and play a format that is actually genuinely fun, and I actually genuinely want to engage with it. I'd be interested to see if it continues this momentum after the RCQ season, especially going into Pioneer season.
I'm hoping so. It's a very well balanced. I think standard of all the formats right now is probably the most balanced in terms of, it doesn't feel like anything is overpowered, broken, or winning everything. It's
Thing is,
very
as well,
rock,
like,
paper,
it's really
scissors.
hard. Yeah, exactly. It's very hard to pick a right deck, and it's very hard to gauge the meta game you're going into, because you could, like, for example, I play Bant Toxic, and I have a really strong.
Yeah, we know what you play.
Christian definitely
a
knows what you
really
play.
strong-
I've got a few words for you on Bank Toxic.
Like, in a control, mid range, and domain meta, like you want to bring Toxic. But if as soon as you see Red White Initiative, not Red White Initiative,
Forest Convoke.
Forest Convoke, you can't. I cannot beat that deck with
Yeah,
Infect.
mono red
They
and
have to
convoke.
mulligan to 4, draw nothing but lands, and I have to get 3 Rock Priest out on turn 3.
Every deck's got that Achilles heel.
Every deck, yeah.
But before we go into specifics, though, just your 2 points there. One of the ones you mentioned was about rotation. I just wanted to talk about that a little bit first.
Sure.
The extension of the rotation, has that made a difference to you guys?
Yeah,
Personally,
I've liked it. I've enjoyed it.
yeah, I like it. Yeah, I like it.
Is that is it the financial point of that, or is it that the deck archetypes are staying longer, a mixture of both?
So
I'm just
Mixture of
thinking
both
because
for me, for sure.
For me, it's not necessary. I mean, I'm happy for it to rotate every couple of years. But yeah, it'd be interesting to get your guys' thoughts.
Yeah, I mean,
so
because
I think
oh, go, you take it away. Go ahead.
it completely depends on how often you play standard. If you're playing standard 3 times a week, you might get fed up of a 3-year rotation because you're playing against the same decks. And if you're investing in the same deck, you might just get bored of that deck. That's the one thing I can think of. But otherwise, if you're playing standard once a week, even once every 2 weeks, if you use only a 2-year rotation, it's probably not worth investing into that deck because it's going to get rotated. But if it's a 3-year rotation, you can have that deck for a long time.
Yeah,
Like for example, Bant Toxic. I think in September when it rotates out, the only thing I lose is the blue cards. I've still got a green white Toxic shell that could potentially still be good.
So my counterpoint to it is, I think that because it's a 3-year rotation, I don't think it necessarily makes things cheaper because there are more cards that you absolutely need. There are more staples and it makes more cards less. Sorry, there are less playable amount of cards. So like if it rotates every 2 years, you're going to see cards that you wouldn't normally see. So when we get to the rotation point,
Yeah,
we're
I know
going to
what you
see
mean by
loads
that.
of cards that we wouldn't see. And I think it's generally positive. I'm not having a knock at it, but I'm just not sure that's the reason people are like, oh yeah, I think that might be a reason people stay into it because they can play the decks for longer once they've bought them. So I think the point's valid, but it's just an interesting one because I was a bit surprised when they did it because I was like, well, now we've got a lot of cards like it printed at rare and whatever, but it's only like a select few in the
Yeah.
packs that are actually worth anything. Whereas if it's a 2-year rotation, you've actually got a bigger chance that there's going to be more playables. Maybe. I mean,
It is a very interesting point to look at because it's not really a new thing. They have had 3-year rotations before. It's not the first time it's been a 3-year rotation. It has been quite a long time because they did change it to 2 years, and we were on that 2-year rotation for I can't remember how long now. But I'm happy with the 3-year change overall because while I understand your point of not technically or essentially making it cheaper, it can in certain ways because you don't always have to play the most meta things when you go to FNM or when you go to your usual weekly standard event. Yeah, if you want to be a competitive grinder, sure. But if you're a competitive grinder, you're going to spend the money anyway. So
yeah.
whatever. But for the casual player who's beginning to play or wanting to play more on the format and learn it better, I think it is better. They're able to use more cards, some that are interchangeable or slightly weaker but still do the job, and play the format for a longer time. And when those cards are going to finally rotate because they've had them for so long for these 3 years, they can easily move them to Pioneer. And that makes a very good stopgap. It bridges that kind of area. And I think it's very positive for that reason.
I think there's this massive obsession with Magic and EV. Like, if name a game where you can play a game, and once you're finished with that game, you can sell it for like 80% of what you put into it. So if I bought a PlayStation game, for example, they're like what 70 quid now, some of them, and I'm done with that, and I go to CEX to hand it in, or I want to sell it online, and you're going to get maybe 15, 20 quid for it. But if I know for a fact that when I'm finished with my, you know, my playset of rares or my playset of whatever, like my Fable, the Mirror Breakers, they've had bans in multiple formats. But even if you spent £30 each on them, they're still about £20 each now. Do you know what I mean? You can still cash out. It's one of those things like with Magic, it's not all of it is dead money, and I think people think, oh, it's £60 for a card. So yeah, but if you play that card for a couple of months and you're bored of it, and you sell it for £50, you've had a couple of months of entertainment for £10 off this one card, for example.
I see, Josh, you've started to believe the lies we tell our partners. No, I agree with you. I agree with you. I think
It's how I
'cause
got my it's how I got my place at Underground Seas. That logic,
yeah.
I'm telling you.
When you settle in your legacy Infect Tech, then no, I think just to wrap up on that because there's only one small point that you kind of made. I think the point I'm trying to make is, let's say your little Timmy who's bought his, he's gone to 2 sealed events, a pre-release, and you bought some packs or whatever. You've built your deck which is basically like a 2-set deck or whatever. And you want to turn up to play standard. I think it's easier with a shorter rotation. I could be wrong. I'm not. I know it's 3 years, so we're not
I see
going
the
to change
logic.
it.
I see the logic.
But I think I don't think that was like, oh, this is a super obvious move we should definitely make that's going to make it much better. But your other point, I think, was spot on. We're being forced to play standard, and I think that needed to happen. And because it's
Yeah.
like one of them, it's like it's really, really hard to get us to all save the environment. But if they made it the law to do it, then we'd probably have to. It's kind of like a similar thing, but in Magic is if they go, oh, actually, you should care about standard because the RCQ season's going to be in standard. Then what you have then is you have the core people at an LGS. So in our Luis and I go to the same LGS. We're there for standard. Every week we can get to standard with her. And what happens then is there's 4 or 5 of us doing that. Before you know it, that player who turns up can play because you've got 8 players.
Yeah.
And then that person then comes back. So we have people who come in for once and they see, oh, hang on a second, these guys play standard. Standard fires here.
The thing
Yeah,
is,
we
like
can now.
standard as well. What standard will do is that you get into a format and you're winning prize packs that you actually want to open because you could get rares and stuff that you would actually play. And then once you've got your standard deck or you're building to a standard deck, things like drafts become more appealing.
Yes,
Things like sealed tournaments become more appealing because not only are you having that experience of playing that format, sealed draft or whatever, but then you've got something to show for it afterwards, which means that it's good for LGSs, it's good for your local play group. It means that people are opening more packs, people have got more rares to trade. The trade folders are full. Then you're building on the community, you're building on the gathering, and I genuinely think if you care about your Magic community, or at least growing, especially around an LGS, you should encourage standard because standard really is it's the key to the
vital
game, in
part
my
of the
opinion.
Yeah,
ecosystem.
I fully agree. And as long as they start bringing back those sick F&M promos, like the good old fatal pushes, instead of whatever this thing is, this goblin dragon looking thing.
So many of that.
Oh
Goblin
my
Dragon.
god.
So
That's what I want. That's what is going to bring back the standard players. You bring back a sick looking fatal push, we're all going to be there. I'm telling you.
When Fatal Push got printed and they brought it as the F&M promo, and it was like a really expensive promo. Like I remember F&M's being like I went to because I used to play in Fanboy 3 in Manchester. That was my original LGS, great LGS, and I'm pretty sure the F&M's for like that solid month or however long it was for that promo, it was like 40 people in F&M, 40 people playing standard.
Wow. 40
That sounds
people.
amazing. That sounds amazing.
Brilliant.
I mean, we went to Fanboy 3, didn't we, Josh, for the first RCQ of the season? It was like
Yes.
only a few days after New Year, and there was like 28 players there. And I was
Yeah,
like,
28
I
players.
couldn't believe. I thought I'm going to go to this first one because everyone will still be hungover after New Year. There'll be no one showing up. It'll be an easy field. And then I was just like, what? But it was fantastic. Terrible for me, but great for the game.
I miss my winning in for top 8 on that format and that day as well. Todd.
Oh,
Oh,
Todd.
Todd.
That was
Or good old Toad, as he loves to call himself on every screen.
Yeah, but do you know what? It's nice though because obviously in the north you end up like knowing who everybody is, and there's a bit of like a community. And
Honestly,
I think
I go to these format like that RCQ I went down. People not seen in years, and I'm greeted with a hug. Do you know what I mean? Everyone's like really happy to see you, and you're really happy to see them, and it's just brilliant.
yeah, until I get paired against you and I'm on domain and you're on Bant Toxic, and then I'm like, oh, for God's sake, why did you have to make the effort to come here today, Josh? Don't you have somewhere better to be?
As you guys can see,
you're the bad guy.
Josh is a very much a one-trick pony. He loves his Infect and Legacy and is Toxic and Standard.
See, the thing is, I moved from Infect to Death Shadow, and now I'm very much in the blue black scam.
You're part of the problem.
So you are the grief.
Yeah, that's what happens in Magic, isn't it? You
You
become
can't beat
part
them,
of the
join them.
problem. You
Yeah.
can't beat them, you join them, and that's what I say to people. Like, we were having a conversation on our Pioneer chat today, and if someone was moaning and moaning and moaning about control, and I was like, if you hate control so much, why don't you play it for a bit? Like, genuinely, because the thing that was frustrating him is the fact that he can't answer things, and I'm like, I get frustrated playing aggro too because I can't answer things. Play
Yeah.
the deck that answers all the questions. So yeah, that's sorry, ran over. But standard fantastic. And if I can just maybe talk a little bit about the decks that are in the format at the moment,
Yeah.
because there's quite a few, and
Tons.
like there's tier 1 decks and then there's tier 2 decks, but in general, you can play a whole host of different things, and people are brewing all the time. Like when
Yeah.
we went to the last RCQ went to, and I came up again, I've seen it a few times since, but I hadn't seen the collect evidence blue black self mill reanimator kind of deck.
Yeah.
And it's like a reanimator combo deck, and it just blew my head off. I was like, I've never seen this. I had no idea what I was playing or how to play against it. But then
Shout
you've
out
got
to
like,
Roebuck on that one. He made
yeah,
your head exploded playing against
I,
that.
people who've played against me will know before that I am a very good Magic player if I have played against your deck before. If you play a tier 1 deck that you are an expert in, but I've played it against it before, I've got a good chance of winning. If you have built a load of draft chaff and put it together unsleeved and riffle shuffled it and played it against me, and I don't know what it is, I lose 0-2.
It was the best because I think the night or two before we played Pioneer and you got milled out in Pioneer, and then you got milled out by
Mill
Roebuck.
in Pioneer. I was just so
And
confused.
then you got milled out by Roebuck in Standard, and I was laughing. It was so funny, so funny.
Yeah,
Oh,
we can look back at it and laugh now, but you lost to Mono Red in the
I
finals.
did,
You're the one
I
who should be
did, I
upset.
did, I
The
did.
thing is that what I like when you look at these decks and standards, I'm looking at the meta now. So like, not one of them I think that's too powerful. And
No,
it's like
no.
you look at like modern, and it's like, oh yeah, the mana's too cheap. The domain decks are everywhere. You look at sort of legacy, and you've got obviously the top 3 decks are playing Bowmasters and Griefs and whatever. But you look at standard, and it's like it's so varied. Like
Yeah, I mean,
it's varied to the point where the top decks are like it's not even all one color. It's all different colors. Like I look at that deck and think like, oh, I can never beat that. I got apart from Convoke, I can never beat that deck. Nothing is scary. Nothing is
And everything
like
has a
yeah.
weakness.
I mean,
like
if you
I
speak,
couldn't name a card that need banding from
yeah,
standard. I couldn't
I,
give you one.
I don't think there's anything that needs it right now. And if you speak to the older players that have played for a longer time and they know modern as it was, you have domain ramp is essentially your big mono green Tron style deck right now. Your big ramp deck does big stuff and it wins over the top. You have your Esper Rafine and your blue black mid range, green black mid range. Those are all your Jund style decks. Mid range, fair, efficient,
Yeah.
fun, that style of thing. And then you have your
Oh,
aggro decks. You have your toxic, Bant Toxic and Mono Red and Boris Convoke, and they're burn or whatever you want to compare them to, and they are all playing together in a good harmony. None of them is
The thing is,
overbearing.
you've got combo as well. You've got combo in there.
Yeah,
You've got the Sultai reanimated decks. You've got
the red black
the Rona
reanimated decks as
decks.
well.
You've got
Rona,
the
yep,
Rona decks. The thing is that there's something in standard right now for everyone,
for
and
everyone.
it's a great time to get into the
Mono
format.
Blue Tempo, Jeskai as
All of
well.
it. It's all in
Yeah,
that. And if you really want, and I would say as well, I mean, I'm an MTGO truther. If you really want to play standard MTGO, it's totally worth it. It's totally worth it
The
because
only
it's
people that
just
there is
good.
not something there for is the Belcher players, and they can stay away. They can stop playing Magic. They've never played Magic to begin with. They're never coming back. Shout out to
Yeah.
Peter on that one. Stop
Shout
it.
out to Michael.
Get
Michael
s-
as well.
get
You
get
know
some
who you
help.
are,
You guys need some help. You understand? Get some help. It's not okay.
Michael.
well, I'm sure any listeners who are randomly called Peter or Michael are just like, what? What did
Michael.
I do to you guys?
I'm not going to say his surname. He knows who he is. He's done what
Yeah,
he's
Peter
done.
knows who he is as well.
He knows what he's done.
Horrible
I was
people.
I was just gonna say, on the sort of list of decks that Luis has put out there are new decks all the time as well, which is
lot.
great. That's
And
so
there's going to
good.
be more Thunder Junctions about to come out.
Yeah.
There's going to be more.
Every set there's new decks, and then when rotation happens, it's gonna be like, whoa,
Do you
what?
know what I've noticed as well with standard, and I think it's something that may hopefully be a thing is every time there's a rotation with modern or with something that happens to legacy, it sort of kills another deck. But in standard, I don't think any deck has really been
They'll
not
just
that
move
there's
up or
no
down.
play that's just been pushed out or made irrelevant or killed off.
Not
Toxic's
fully.
not losing anything though, which is scary. So.
No, it's losing March of Otherly Lights, right?
Oh,
Still gonna
okay,
gain
that's
it.
all right. Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that. I'll
the
take
most
that.
Thing
important
is,
card.
March is the card in that deck that makes that deck mentally powerful.
Yeah, it's silly. It's silly.
If you have 2 Rot Priests out and you untap with March, you have just won.
Yeah, if you have one
And there's
Rot Priest
nothing you can do
out
about it.
and a
Yeah.
Skrell's Hive going, you just die. Your game's over. It's the worst feeling in the world.
So, Luis, we've got our RCQ. I think by the time this episode comes out, we'll have done the RCQ on Saturday.
Yeah, we'll have 2 winners, you and me. Let's go. Both going to
Yeah, let's
Naples,
go.
100%. Definitely never gonna lose.
What's well? I think it's going to be hard for both of us to get, because presumably we'll both top 8 in the first RCQ, so we won't be able to go to the next one. If there's 3 toxic players though, I'll just drop anyway. What are you thinking? What deck are you pushing on behind?
I'm sticking onto Esper Rafine. It has a 50-50 or better chance against just about everything. Feels positive. I know the deck quite well. I think it's a solid choice. That's what I'm sticking
I
to.
agree. I'm actually building that deck.
Just in time for the RCQ season.
Yeah.
The thing is, I want. We're playing standard every Wednesday, and where I live,
Fair enough.
because it's brilliant. And we
How
wanna
many do you
play it.
get?
We get between 4 and 6, not many.
Yeah, but
We don't have
that's good.
we don't have an LGS where from, so we tend to, it's like a player run sort of community.
Yeah.
So we sort our own prize pot out, we sort our own venues out, and we sort of play kind of like how they do out of Oxford when we used to play down there.
I was just gonna say, I'm on Domain, and I've got some new tech, and I can spoil it on here because I'm gonna have done the RCQ and will have qualified by now, so it won't matter. But I've started running Lightning Helix in it.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
so I started. I thought I want another life gain, but like a direct damage thing. Because the thing is, there's some problems with mono red. Is like one of those games where I'm like, I'd really like to increase my win percentage against mono red, because we've got RCQs, and because standards becoming popular, people are building mono red because they're like, oh, I've got these cards, I can build mono red. It's really simple. It's cheap. It's simple. They for some reason some people enjoy mono red. I can't possibly fathom that myself. But
It is one of the most boring colors to play.
Oh, you guys don't know. You don't know what it's like to be a red mage. It's great. It's so much fun watching the salty control players.
I built mono red, and it was just the most boring thing. Because I built it on Arena because I was like, I want to understand the deck more and get it. And then basically, what matters is who wins the die roll in that deck, because tends to be the biggest thing. Which anyway, back to what I was saying. I wanted to have something which helped me, but also was another thing that would get rid of the bat. And I thought that Lightning Helix is pretty castable in mine, because I have like 7 ways to generate the red mana, and I can go and get one as well. So it's like, I thought I'll try it with the Lightning Helix, and it was performed pretty well for me in the games that I played.
like that.
Yeah. So I've gone up to 3 temporary lockdowns in the main and dropped the 4th. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I've also been looking at Metropolis Performer as well. You have hexproof 2/3 flying. Whenever it takes damage, you gain that much life. But it's
That's
you have
interesting.
hexproof. I think might be really useful in some of the mid range.
2/3 is really easy to answer though. I mean, it will soak up, like, even if it soaks up a 3 damage on something.
Good against Rot Priest. Your worst matchup.
I wanted to try it, but
Yeah,
I didn't get the cards in time. They arrived yesterday, so we'll see what happens. We'll let you know, because by the time Luis joins you on the next podcast, he'll be like, Christian, he beat me in the final. Oh no. He had hexproof. I couldn't bat him. No.
Yeah. For some reason, he cast Lightning Helix against my Rafine. It didn't do anything.
It doesn't, Dennett. Get out of here.
Nah, it'll be good. I'll be sure to update everyone on Christian's salty tears after he loses the finals, for sure.
Salty tears. I know that's not what you said.
Have you got any guys, your last thoughts around standard?
Play standard.
Play standard.
standard.
Come down and play. It's very fun. Keep Magic alive. It's the best way.
I would also say, like, even if you're not playing standard all the time, I would encourage standard. Like,
Yeah.
just encourage standard in your local play group. That's what I'm trying to do around mine.
And if you get new players, introduce them to standard and 1v1, not commander, because it teaches horrible habits when they come and play 1v1 and they show up with 4 soul rings in their deck, not expecting not to be able to do that. It's happened multiple times now, and I'm tired of it.
I always know commander player or when they were, because when they cast lightning bolt in their turn, lightning bolt, what the hell's that? Lightning bolt in their turn.
So you
the
played with
triangle.
Wally then? Perfect. Yeah. No, just my final thought is, a lot of people listening to this will be, people who are experienced 1v1 players and they love 1v1. I think most of them will probably have dabbled in standard this season, but if you haven't, and now think, oh well, the RCQs are gone now, so there's no point. There's absolutely a point. To what you were saying there about it being such a pivotal part of the ecosystem, completely agree.
Yeah.
But more than anything else, all the other important reasons, it's really good fun.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you'll enjoy it. Go and play it. And it's not too soon to brew something. It's not too late to brew something. You can brew something cool.
And with that, if you can, drop us a like, subscribe, tell all your friends about the podcast, share it around. It'd be very welcome. And we do appreciate you guys coming to us and, listening in to our very rambly talks. And take it away, Josh. Sign us away.
Yeah, thanks for listening to the podcast. And remember, standard is dead. Long live standard.